when I'm showing them grace, when I'm showing them love, that's when eventually they want to listen to me and go, "Why do you even do this?"
Welcome in, everyone, and welcome to the Louisiana Now podcast. I am your host, Todd Rossnagel. It is great to have everyone along with us, and we hope all are doing well. That was the voice, by the way, of Reverend Sam Hubbard, one of our many guests today, as we focus on the growing need of feeding those who are hungry. We are all doing all we can to stay at home, but there are so many who were relying on schools for food, relying on churches for food, and that need has not gone away. In fact, the need has increased in a major way. We'll hear from the folks at SLU Wesley, an update on what they are doing, and we'll also check in with Reverend Kennon Pickett of Broadmoor United Methodist Church in Baton Rouge. Their ministry, known there as Red Stick Together, it was thriving prior to COVID-19, and it's multiplying today, literally multiplying as they've gone from 60 to 70 meals to over 300. All of these stories today, stories of how the church is responding to the needs of the community by, as Kenan will put it later in the show, simply asking, what does the community need? Let's begin by heading to Hammond and hear Gabe Willis, Dean of Students at Southeastern, who says as the pandemic grew, the administration there was looking for community partners to help.
I wanted to take a brief moment to discuss our amazing partnership and relationship with Southeastern Wesley. This has been a relationship that has been sustained for quite some time, but that relationship has magnified over the last few weeks with the announcement of the pandemic. The first person to reach out was Mr. Sam Hubbard to say, look, how can Wesley do more? How can we're in a position to help. How can we be more resourceful? So Ms. Wendy Lauderdale, our Vice President for University Advancement, actually also got in contact with Sam, and we talked about the food pantry. We talked about the idea that we won't have staff on campus to operate our food pantry. How can we ensure that our students in need continue to have this resource? So through that partnership with Wesley, they decided that they would distribute the food, that they would be available to hand out food to any student in need. And that's just the type of relationship that's been developed over the years, and it continues in this time of need.
And now the Wesley Foundation is handing out bags of food and supplies for some of the nearly 800 students stuck on campus in the dorms and nearly 300 students in the local apartments. We caught up with Melissa Guerra, a familiar face at the Wesley Foundation if you've ever been there.
It's Sunday, March 29th, and I am the co-director at the Wesley Foundation at SLU.
Melissa is quick to point out the extreme need that is growing not only at SLU, but in the Hammond metro area not far from New Orleans. She's also quick to point out where she has seen the Holy Spirit at work inside the Wesley and with the students.
I think where I see it the biggest, honestly, is with our core group of students and residents who are literally at our building every single day. And I mean, they didn't really care when the college shut down. It was the college is shutting down. Okay, classes are going to move to online. Cool. All right. And then they started asking people to leave the campus, and their immediate reaction was, well, what about the foreign exchange students? Where are they going to go? They don't have anywhere to go. How are they going to keep getting what they need if they're stuck on this campus and there's nothing? They all know they don't have cars. They know that their only jobs, they're only allowed to work on campus. They're not allowed to work, at restaurants around town because they're here on a visa. And so their visa specifically says you can only work on campus. Well, now campus is shut down and it's actually locked down. You can't get into any building. And so my students and residents, their first reaction to all of this was, okay, how do we help them? And then when the public school system shut down, their next reaction was, okay, well, how are these kids going to eat? How do we feed them? And so that's just been amazing to watch the Holy Spirit kind of move through them, kind of guide them into how to be the hands and feet of Jesus. I mean, really what we're about at the Wesley is kind of just serving people, serving the community, learning how to live in a community that loves Jesus and loves people and kind of teaches other people what Jesus looks like.
The Reverend Sam Hubbard is the director of the Wesley Foundation on the campus of SLU. Sam, one of the many pastors at St. Timothy's on the North Shore, has, along with the students at SLU and many partner churches along the way, revived the student ministry there. 5 years ago, the ministry was active but very small. The building was, as Sam puts it, a wreck. But today, the building and the chapel have been renovated. There's an active coffee shop and an even more active student ministry. Sam has always said verbalizing the gospel is very important, but just as important is doing the gospel. It will help the entire church as we move forward, and it has helped the Wesley Foundation since his arrival.
And how we do evangelism is so different now. And yes, I am unapologetic about Jesus. Unapologetic in the sense of I really do think he points us to the best way to live life. And what's interesting though is I can have the most eloquent sermon and most convincing argument, but they don't want to listen to me. But if I say, hey, come get a free meal, or hey, come join us at Our Daily Bread while we make boxes, I'll get tons of people to do that, new people to come. And next thing you know, when I'm showing them grace, when I'm showing them love, that's when eventually they want to listen to me and go, why do you even do this? And I know that for us has been the outreach that actually is the most evangelistic thing we can do, is we show people the gospel. And then when they see how beautiful it is, and how liberating it is, and the good it can do in the world, and for an individual, that's when they want to know where it all comes from.
So that being said, Sam, what's next for the church? Where do we go from here? I mean, this is unlike anything that certainly in our lifetimes that we've ever experienced. What happens as a result of this? Where do we go from here? I mean, this is going to be a ginormous shift for the entire world. How does the church respond?
I hope, and this is probably, and I mean this in the most best way possible, I hope we don't go back to business as usual. I really hope not.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean is, and I'm once again, this is, and I feel like I've said this to the Board of Ordained Ministry. I've said this to my clergy colleagues. I've said this to everybody because I just want to say, hey, remember, this is coming from Sam, the atheist, all of his life, who's only been a Christian for about a follower of Jesus for about 15 years. And so sometimes I'm going to say some things that sound critical, and they're not. They don't mean to be. I'm actually trying to say it because I think, and I said this to the Board of Ordained Ministry just last week, I mean, I can't say enough how I believe the church is the hope for the world. I just can't say it enough, and I believe it, or I wouldn't have given my life to this. However, this is the first time and once again, I'm saying this from a 100% place of love. We've been forced into being creative now. We can't just devise a new way to get people to come to our doors. They're not coming. They're not going to come because the governor said they can't. and so now we have to go, no, wait a minute. It's like when Bishop Harvey says this all the time when she's talking to the new ordinands, will you, in the Wesleyan questions, will you visit house to house and Facebook to Facebook and Instagram to Instagram? Now we have to.
Sure.
And I think it's really, I hope it's opening our eyes to like, wait a minute, there is so much more we could be doing to reach the city around us, our community around us, our context around us, than gathering together on a Sunday morning, like so much more. And not that saying that Sunday morning's bad or we should stop it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying it's 1 hour out of the 168 hours of the week. I cannot get somebody to come here for an hour to hear me talk about Jesus, but I can get a student, an atheist, a Wiccan, to come here and be around other Christians for 10 hours straight. I'm not lying. Some people have stayed here that long, and we talk about everything. And but it's really sad that we don't have that. And we're like, wait a minute, everybody's Zooming small group meetings, everybody's Zooming this, Zooming that, we're Zooming all over the place. And why don't we just Zoom the cafe? And so we did. And we said, hey, come, we're bored, come visit us at the coffee shop. And people were in their car, I shouldn't say that, they'll get in trouble. But they were in their cars calling in, they were from their houses in Franklinton because they missed it too. And so I say all that to say that I feel like I'm finally seeing the church be creative and start really asking the important questions like, what does my city need after all? What is, because I'm seeing that there's a lot of people that are asking questions are like, how do we serve the poor? How do we serve meals? How do we visit house to house? How do we help the sick? That doesn't spread this disease anymore.
We are back with more with our guest, the Reverend Sam Hubbard, in just a moment. But first, a word from our sponsor, the United Methodist Foundation of Louisiana. Remember, one of the things that churches today are really struggling with is falling donations, thanks in large part to our sheltering in place. Your church needs an online giving portal, and the foundation can help you set up an online platform, and they can do it at no cost. UMF.org is the website. It's quick, it's easy, and even if you think it's not easy, guess what? They'll do the hard work for you. UMF.org is the website for more information. We thank the foundation for their support of the Louisiana Now podcast. Back now to our conversation with Sam. And in a previous Louisiana Now podcast, I was struck by a point Alice McKenzie from Perkins made.
If we can't be there in person, going to people's homes and gathering, we can certainly curate their concerns from the web. It's ironic to me that, formerly we critiqued technology for contributing to social isolation, and now we're commending it for enhancing social connection.
I asked Sam about that, not only that we are seeing a shift yet again in the power and the reach of social media, but in the very real fact that the cement is shifting beneath our feet.
I think if we're open enough, and I hope that this has disturbed us enough to see the tools that, yes, can they be bad? Like, trust me, I've read enough white papers and like psychological papers about social media about how absolutely horrible it is neurologically and cognitively. It is, it's horrible.
Right.
However, what is the gospel about? What are we supposed to be about? We're supposed to go into the world. We're supposed to go into this broken world and do what? Restore it, or reclaim it is another way to say it sometimes, depending on which translation you read. So why don't we, take this thing that can be negative and do what the gospel does and reclaim it and make it into something beautiful that is actually life-giving. And once again, one of the things that I think that hopefully we don't go back to our old ways, but we look into this new creative future that's ahead of us.
Reverend Sam Hubbard from the Wesley Foundation and so much more in the city of Hammond, Louisiana, where he and the students there and the administration and so many others are going into the world to restore and reclaim. Sam, thanks for your time. We truly appreciate it.
No, love you, brother. Thank you.
If you would like to support the Wesley Foundation at Southeastern, one of the best ways to do that is to buy some of their coffee. You can have it delivered straight to your door as you practice social distancing. The link is in the show notes. All proceeds from some of their menu items allow them to keep Cairo's Coffee House in operation. And the majority of those proceeds will go to a local charity. And this particular semester, they're partnering with the Southeastern Louisiana University Food Pantry, as we mentioned. We move now west to Baton Rouge, Broadmoor United Methodist Church, a missional ministry that was launched after the church went through the church transformation process with Reverend Gloria Fowler's team at the conference office. Red Stick Together is located in a strip shopping center not far from the church. They've been steadily serving nearly 70 people each week. It's described as simply a chance to facilitate conversation and practice compassionate listening. But it's so much more. It's also a chance to meet people where they are and help them take their next step toward a Christ-centered life. And it's now playing a vital role in helping the most vulnerable in and around the Broadmoor community. Here's Reverend Kennon Pickett from Broadmoor.
Yeah, when we first started gathering, we were meeting the needs of the community, especially the community in Broadmoor. And, I'll never forget meeting a guy named Tim who, he was a military vet, and he was just, he had lost his job. And so it was really awesome to see how the ministry of Red Stick Together was able to meet him where he was at. And provide him with a hot meal. I met another lady named Christine, and she was having problems. Her husband had left, and she and her daughter were the only ones remaining in their household. And she said that, considering that she didn't have employment, that this was, one of the only times that they would eat. And so it went from stories like that to this gathering and how important this gathering it was to people, to all of a sudden this situation where the gathering part couldn't happen anymore because of the CDC, recommendations for social distancing. And so once that happened, we knew that need did not change, that there were still people out there who were hungry or lonely, and so. What we did was we got a little creative, which is that's what the church does in situations like this. And we turned it into a drive-through. And what we found is that with the focus being on getting that food out to people, we were able to ramp up the number of meals that we were serving. So we went from only doing, 60 to 70 meals per gathering instantly to 100 meals. Well, that first week, was kind of a test for us. We didn't know what to expect. And we passed those 100 meals out in under 30 minutes.
Kenan, one of the things that I've noticed through the Louisiana Now podcast and telling and sharing and communicating with people on the ground as they continue this unbelievable work is that the Holy Spirit is always 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of us. Where have you found the Holy Spirit at work, specifically with the Red Stick Together movement?
Well, that's a great question, Todd. And I'd have to say that God's dreams and God's aspirations and God's plans are bigger than ours. And so it's just, to me, it's about being willing and open to what the Spirit is trying to do and not trying to impose our limitations or our insecurities. If you would have told me, a month ago that we would be serving 200, 300, 400, I mean, we're ramping up right now. We're trying to get to the place where, like this coming week, we're going to be serving 600 meals. And that's a big stretch for us, both in terms of volunteerism and in terms of resources and food.
Wow.
So, just realizing that God has God-sized dreams, and that may mean that we have to get out of our own way and let the Spirit flow and just be a part of that.
Reverend Kennon Pickett from Broadmoor United Methodist Church in Baton Rouge. the entire crew over there doing a fantastic job. Thanks for your time.
Blessings to all.
Food pantries in Louisiana have experienced a tripling in the number of clients. Supplies were at a critical level before the pandemic, and the numbers are even more critical today. Bishop Cynthia Fierro Harvey has approved a grant from the Office of Missional Engagement and Outreach inside the Louisiana Conference, a grant of $50,000 headed to Feeding Louisiana, to be distributed by them to their food bank members around the state. There are 5 food banks that service the entire state of Louisiana. We've included links to all 5 of them in the show notes. And just a reminder, if you give to your church, please continue to give to your church. Our churches need to sustain their ministries, and your financial support is needed now more than ever. We thank you for listening and supporting the Louisiana Now podcast. It's a production of the Department of Communications inside the Louisiana Conference. Until next time, we remind you of the words of Jesus in the 25th chapter of Matthew. Truly, I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these, you did it to me. In other words, when we feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, we see and experience Jesus.